Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here today. This is Michael Halper with Sales Scripter, and the topic today is how to build your best value proposition. The agenda today is we're going to go through kind of four main topics. The first thing we want to take a step back and talk about what exactly is value, right? So if we're going to build a value proposition, let's have a clear understanding of what basically value is and be on the same page. Then we'll go through a process that you can use to help define what your value is, right? So if you're going to build a value proposition for yourself, you have to be able to know what you have to offer. I'm real big on providing tips that are implementable, processes that you can use, and so we'll definitely go through a process that you can use to explore and figure out what your value is. Then we will go through examples of value propositions that you can use. Basically, we're going to talk about creating your value proposition, so I'll actually give you some templates of value propositions that you can plug in the value that you're able to figure out in the previous step into these templates, and you can then use those as your value proposition. And then we'll kind of wrap up with talking about when you're prospecting and talking to prospects, how can you use your value proposition, when to use your value proposition. And that's really the agenda for today, so let's just get started with taking a step back and looking at what exactly value is in the context of value proposition. So I just took this definition from the internet, but basically here's a definition of value. There's many different value can mean different things in different contexts, right, as with most words, but this is the closest one to how it is applied to the concept of value proposition. But the regard that something is held to deserve the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. And the key word that I want to focus on here is the word worth. So your value proposition is communicating what you have to offer, what you're worth, what your product is worth, or your company is worth, or you're worth to your customer when they buy from you, right? So I want to kind of use a metaphor here, an analogy, but consider a $100 bill, right? And a $100 bill has a value that fluctuates, right? You can buy a certain amount of goods with $100. You can buy a certain amount of foreign currency with $100, and that value moves up and down a little bit. But at the end of the day, you can buy X amount with $100, and that's what it's worth, right? What is that currency worth? But if we take a step back and let's just say that we're an alien coming from outer space to Earth, and we don't know what a $100 bill is, right? So physically, if you look at it, it's a piece of paper with some ink on it, right? Functionally, it really can't be used for a whole lot. It could be folded up or whatever. I mean, you can't do a whole lot with it, but it actually has an intangible value that you can exchange it, right? So it has a worth. But the reason why I kind of bring that up is, think about your product. Let's say you sell some piece of technology and it's actually a physical box, right? That box is the same thing as the dollar bill. I mean, functionally, you can't maybe do a whole lot with the box, but it's what that box or that dollar bill allows someone to do. And that's the worth. That's what it's worth, and that's the value. So communicating your value proposition or figuring out what your value proposition is figuring out what can you buy with that $100, what can you do with that box, what can you do with that piece of software, what can you do with that service, what does your customer what are they able to do when they purchase from you. So depending on what you sell, you're going to fall into one of two scenarios. Most likely, I can't really think of a third, but you're either going to sell something that the prospect does not have any idea what you sell, right? You sell something very unique. An example could be my own company, Sales Scripter. We sell a piece of software that there's really nothing else like it out there, right? So um, when when someone comes across our website or they're in a conversation with us or whatever, they don't know what we sell, right? So you'll know real quickly which of these two scenarios you're in. So let me just get to the second scenario. The second scenario is you sell something that the prospect knows what it is, and most likely you deal with a challenge that they think they don't need it. So let me give you some examples of this. And um, a recruiting firm, a recruiting service, right? A someone will know what a recruiter does typically. They recruit individuals, right? But someone might currently not use a recruiter and think I can do this on my own. I don't need that. A CPA firm, buying office supplies, some real commodity type of products, but just really so you should know what you fall into. But now what I want to point out is that depending on what category you're in, you might use your value and communicate value and your value proposition for slightly different purposes. They're pretty similar, but they're slightly different. Because if you fall into category one, when you really focus on communicating your value, this will help to educate someone on what you do, on what your product does, and why they might need it. Meaning, if you're the alien looking at the $100 bill, this would be explaining to someone this it can be exchanged for other goods and services. So, or if your technology is a black box, this is communicating to someone what the black box does. So the reason why that's important is that if you don't really focus on communicating value and you just talk about the box, then you're going to end up in situations where someone doesn't really understand what you do. Or if you focus more on communicating value, it will be easier for you to educate someone. So instead of talking about all the features and the speeds and feeds, saying what the thing will help someone to do. The other category is that communicating the value can help with getting around the objection that someone's not interested. Let me give you an example here, and this is kind of closer to the $100 bill. But let's say that someone wants to sign you up for like a credit card that gets miles when you make purchases, right? And let's say hypothetically you never travel anywhere, you never get on a plane, so you don't need miles. So you know what the card is, you know what miles are, you know how miles are used. So this is not this is in the second category. But when someone communicates to you that the miles can also be used for gift cards at Amazon, which you can buy anything with or be exchanged for cash back, then you realize, oh, then you become interested, right? So what happens there is then you were educated on the value, the worth, right? That's the worth. What that those miles can be exchanged for. You assumed you knew it, and when it was communicated to you more clearly and completely, all the different things you can use the miles for, you then became interested. So that's an example of using the value, communicating the worth to build interest and maybe get around a not interested objection. So, but you still might end up communicating the complete worth and value, and you still might end up with someone who doesn't they're still not interested. And in that case, if you've communicated clearly, you're ending up in a situation where that's a genuine prospect. That's a prospect that's genuinely not qualified and not a fit. So you can run into situations where a prospect might say, "I'm not interested," and they're saying "I'm not interested" because of their incomplete understanding. And if you don't communicate completely, either by communicating your value or asking the right questions or having a good sales pitch, you may go away and they might successfully get rid of you with the objection of "I'm not interested" because you didn't communicate completely and correctly and effectively. But if you communicate your value, you're a step closer to resolving the I'm not interested that you can, and you still might end up at that dead end, but if you reach that, you can have more confidence that you did what you could to resolve that. Anyways, so the if we can just get you talking about your value instead of talking about your product, we will achieve a huge step forward. But we can get a little bit more sophisticated and actually break down the value you offer into 3 different levels or 3 different categories. So at the lowest level, there's a type of value that I call technical value. And by the way, using these different categories will come in handy when you start to try to explore and find the value that you offer. So technical value is at the lowest level, and this is really like where things start to work better, right? So this is where your product might help someone to improve a process, might improve a system, improve their employees, improve things. Like from a functional standpoint, it doesn't have to be. Don't when I say technical, don't get pigeonholed to think that we're talking about technology. You could have something that has no technology. You could sell something that is zero technical, zero technology, but you could still improve something from a technical perspective in terms of a process. Anyways, so some examples of this might be automating manual processes. So something where people are doing things, you make them more automated. You make something perform better. You decrease the amount of time it takes to complete something. You make something more reliable. Now, if you help someone to realize some technical benefits, and by the way, the word benefits and value can be used interchangeably. So, but if you help someone to realize some technical benefits, those will often lead to business improvements, and that's the next level up, which are improvements in revenue, improvements in cost, improve how a business delivers their services. So, for example, if you help something to be more automated, you might help to decrease labor costs, right? So one benefit leads to another. In fact, most benefits lead to another benefit. You can often keep drilling into a benefit, and it doesn't have to be where one technical benefit leads to a business benefit. A technical benefit could lead to another technical benefit, and you could keep drilling into it. But if we make something require less people, then that's going to decrease our labor costs. You could also automate something, and that might improve revenue, because if you automate something, let's say that you can produce more. Let's say you're building cars. If you automate something, you can produce more cars, you can sell more cars, then you could have more revenue. So some examples are improving revenue, increasing market share, improving your close rate, decreasing costs, any type of costs, improve the delivery of services. So your customers are maybe a business owner and they deliver some sort of service, right? They could maybe literally deliver packages, and you're helping them to deliver packages faster. But don't get caught up on the word delivery. Your customer can bake cakes, right? And you help them to bake better tasting cakes or more cakes, or the cakes look better. That's the delivery of their service. Now, just like with the other benefit, technical benefit, when you deliver business benefits, those could also lead to other business benefits. But the next level up would be personal benefits, personal value. So these are the benefits that actually impact an individual. So the individual could be the person that you're closing the deal with. It could be the person that you're selling to. It could be the owner of the company. But they can often realize some benefits when they purchase from you. For example, if you're selling to a business owner and you help them to increase revenue, well, they're going to make more money personally, their personal income. Their income and the revenue for the company are technically 2 different things. So their personal income would be a personal benefit. And even if they're not the business owner, let's say they're the VP of operations, and they have a bonus at the end of the year, and what you sell them helps them to hit their bonus more consistently, well, that's a benefit. Workload is a big one. And you're selling in the the B2B, you're selling if you're selling at the management level, these people are working a lot. What if you could sell them something? What if your product helps them to do their job in less hours, which means their work-life balance is better? So the main thing to kind of grasp here is that there's different types of benefits, and the personal benefits are really at that individual level. By the way, these from top to bottom are kind of the way that I usually talk about these to a prospect often in the sales process, meaning when I have just a couple minutes with someone and it's very early, I might focus more on technical benefits. Once I'm able to get an appointment and establish a conversation, I might get more into business details. And then when I'm really able to establish the relationship and maybe build a business case and whatnot, then you maybe can get into more personal stuff. But that could go either way, but that's just one way to kind of look at that. All right, so hopefully that gives you an idea of what value is and why you should care about it and communicate it. Now let's talk about how you can figure out what your value is. And I'll point out that this is a very challenging thing. We help our customers at SalesScripter to through this process a lot. In fact, when customers come to us, either and they use our software or they use our consulting services, we often help them to build their sales pitch. And one of the very early steps in building your sales pitch is to figure out what your value is. And it's one of the more challenging things that I find with people. And but hopefully this process will help you. So if that's encouraging. So here I'm going to give you like a step-by-step process, and you can copy this or use part of this, whatever works for you. But step one is to stop and think about, okay, what is the product, service that I sell? Or you could also build your value off of an individual feature of a product. Maybe you sell a product and it has a feature that's very compelling. And the feature is something you don't sell individually. Like you don't have a line item or a purchase price for that feature, but maybe you have a very attractive feature, and you could use this you could build off this process off an individual feature. But through this demonstration, I'm going to use sort of like an inventory management software product. It's just a fictional product that I kind of thought of, so hopefully you can follow along. But product or feature one is auto inventory replenishment, and step two is to kind of think about what does that product do, or what does that feature do. And so the function of auto inventory replenishment is that it automatically submits orders to vendors based on inventory levels. Okay, so just want to point out, so far we're not talking any value. We're only talking product details up until this point. But step three is, okay, now let's look at those two details and think about how does that help our buyer or our customer or a business from a technical perspective. Well, if they're able to automatically submit orders, meaning not manually submit orders, then that decreases the amount of time ordering. Let me give you an example. When I was in high school, I worked at a grocery store, and I remember watching managers walk around with like a keypad thing in their hand, walking up and down the aisles, ordering. Right? It would take a lot of time. So imagine that you can sell something that prevents that human from having to do that process. Maybe the system uses the data that goes through the cash register to process orders. I mean, I don't have experience with any of this, so I don't think I'm like talking about all the stuff I have knowledge about and it's foreign to you. I'm just making this all up, so hopefully you can follow along. But my point is that instead of having someone walk up and down an aisle, it's automated. So that from a technical perspective, our company and our people can spend less time ordering, right? Well, so step 4 is, okay, now we have that technical benefit. What does that mean to us from a business perspective? Well, if we don't have to have someone walk up and down the aisles of the grocery store, well, then we don't have to pay that person to do that. So we either can do more with less people, or do something different with that person. But at the end of the day, we can decrease our staff and labor costs. So that's a business benefit. All right. Well, step 5 is, how does either of those two benefits we came up with so far help from a personal perspective? So let's say that we're selling to the CFO of the grocery store. Well, actually, with this benefit here, we're selling to the store manager, who is the person who walks up and down the aisle, right? And so the benefit to him or her is we can help to improve their work-life balance, because they can get home earlier, because they're not instead of walking up and down an aisle, they're sitting at a kitchen table with their family having dinner, right? So we're improving their work-life balance. So that's a step-by-step process that we started with the product, and we ended up with 3 value points, okay? And so then from there we can kind of continue for additional products or services or features that we have. And so I've done the same thing. I won't go through each of these, but we have predictive demand forecasting, we have a management dashboard, and each of those features has a different yet similar benefits. So we have a bunch of value there, right? So some really good information, a lot of good stuff that we can use for our messaging, for our sales pitch. We could use that for our website, all sorts of different stuff. But one last step here, and this is optional. In some ways, we might have too much information there to kind of really build a laser tight, focused value proposition. So a last step here is, and this is just I added here at the bottom, but the last step is to summarize all of those columns and those individual points to come up with more of like summary points. It's optional, and there's that last step is more art than science, because it's kind of hard, to look at 3 different things and to make it into one. Sometimes you might look at the 3 and say, well, one of them is just better than the others, and I'll just use that. So you might look at the more dominant one, or there might be a way to kind of put a bow around all 3 and come up with a new point that summarizes all 3. But anyway, so at the bottom row here is the summary, and you could call that like your core value or the summary of your value. But anyways, so that's a process that you can use. You could copy this table and do that on your own. What I want to give you now are some questions that you could use to brainstorm. So coming up with stuff to put in those boxes on your own, you may have trouble, right? You might not really know what type of improvement you help to make. So here are 3 pages of questions. I won't read each of these to you. You can download these slides. But these slides and the video will be posted on our website, and you'll get a link to it for after this webinar. But I'm sorry, in a day after this webinar, 24 hours after the webinar, you'll get a link. But these questions help you to brainstorm and think about improvements you help to make. You basically insert your product name or whatever, your feature or whatever, and if your answer to one of these questions is yes, then start to kind of think about and compose how. So it's sort of like, does your product help to improve any processes? If your answer is yes, then how, or what processes? So these are just to kind of guide you to start to brainstorm and organize and identify the different ways that you help. So here are some technical questions. Here are some business questions. Do you help to increase revenue, visibility, decision making, risk, customer satisfaction? Here are some personal questions: personal income, decrease stress, improve work-life balance, improve recognition. Think about improve recognition. If your buyer purchases your product, are you going to help them to get more attention inside their organization and work their way up the ladder? I mean, that's a pretty good selling point. So moving on to the next section. So hopefully you can use that process and those questions to identify the value that you offer. And there were a lot of questions, there were a lot of boxes. You don't have to come up with a million different, if you call them value points. Each of those boxes in the matrix was like a value point. You don't have to come up with a million. I would say somewhere between like three to six value points is ideal and something you can work with. Three to 10 is great. Any more or less is probably not good. So let's say that you've brainstormed and you've come up with a handful of value points. Now let's create your value proposition. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you these are like template value propositions. And what you can do is you can plug in your value points into these templates to create your own value proposition. So the first one I call short and sweet. So it's basically, we help, and then you insert your target audience. Target audience meaning who you're talking to, whether it's who you're calling, who you're emailing, who you're and this could either be businesses, like we help businesses, or it could be we help business owners, we help small businesses. It can either be a type of organization, meaning businesses, small businesses. It could be an industry reference. We help manufacturers. We help airline companies. So it could be an industry reference, target audience. It could also be an individual, like we help people to do this. We help individuals. We help homeowners. It could also be someone in an organization, like we help VPs of human resources. We help CIOs. So what that target audience does is it just allows you to tailor your value proposition to the person you're speaking with. I mean, you could actually remove that, and you could just say we help to, and then say the rest of your value proposition. That's fine too. I just personally like sort of tailoring the message to the person you're talking to. Anyways, the second half of the template is basically just inserting your value point. So, and that's it. So we help business owners to improve blah blah blah. So let me show you some examples. So we help businesses to improve their ability to effectively manage their inventory levels. So I'm bringing over those value points that we already went through, so to keep the example consistent. So very short and sweet. Now, and you may look at that and go, "That's it," you know. The reality is that your value proposition doesn't have to tell the whole story. In the next section I'm gonna show you when and how to use your value proposition. So a lot of times you're using it just to kind of start the conversation, or you're using it in place of something that might negatively start the conversation. So it doesn't have to tell the whole story. In some ways, it's just kind of providing part of the beginning of the story. It's providing the angle that you come from. Anyway, so we help businesses to improve their ability to effectively manage their inventory levels. We help businesses to decrease cost of goods sold and administrative time. We help VPs of operations to hit quarterly production targets. So 3 examples there. One is actually the first is technical, second is business, and the third is a personal improvement. So short and sweet. The next one is to start to mix and match the different levels of benefits. So connecting the technical value with the business value. So we help target audience to technical improvement, and this often leads to business improvement. So let me show you what that looks like. We help businesses to improve their ability to effectively manage their inventory levels, and this often leads to a decrease in cost of goods sold as well as administrative time. So it's a little long, but if you were worried about the other one being too short and not enough, there's definitely some meat there. So it's another option for you. We help VPs of ops to decrease cost of goods sold as well as administrative time, and we do this by improving their ability to effectively manage their inventory levels. So the difference between these two examples is the order of technical and business. the first one's technical first, business second. The second one is business first, lead, and created by the technical improvement. Connecting technical value with personal value. So now we're bringing in that personal aspect. So we help target audience to technical improvement, and this often leads to personal improvement. We help VPs of ops to improve their ability to effectively manage their inventory levels, and this often leads to them being able to consistently hit their quarterly production targets. We help businesses to consistently hit their quarterly production targets and do this by improving their ability to effectively manage their inventory levels. And if you haven't noticed something yet, basically, once you come up with your value points, a lot of us stress on, I don't know what my value proposition is. Once you come up with your value points, mixing and matching those and smushing them together to create some sort of statement is pretty easy once you have the individual points. Connecting business value with personal value. So we help target audience to business improvement, and this often leads to a personal improvement. We help VPs of ops to maximize the production capacity, and this often leads to them being able to consistently hit their quarterly production targets. We help businesses to consistently hit their quarterly production targets and do this by improving their ability to maximize the production capacity. So again, whether or not those individual points are great or written perfectly or too short, too long, the key thing here is the concept of how to put it all together, and yours are going to be different anyway. So hopefully you have enough direction there. The last one, if you haven't noticed so far, we've talked, well, in the other other value propositions we just went through, we did not mention the product really at all. We talked solely about benefits. We help with this, we help with that. Now, in some ways, I personally think that's good. Like, you'll work your way to talking about the product, either in your next sentence or two, or later in the conversation. So you'll get to your product, and that's really what I do. Is I wait to really talk about my product. In fact, I'll even ask questions to the prospect and really talk about them a lot before I get to really even saying what my product is and does. But there are people out there that either just really want to talk about their product, or maybe you sell something that it makes sense to bring it up earlier versus later. So here's a template for your value proposition that brings in the product. So we provide, and you insert your product, and this helps target audience to, and then you insert a benefit point. We provide inventory management software, and this helps businesses to improve their ability to effectively manage inventory levels. We provide inventory management software, and this helps businesses to decrease their cost of goods sold and decrease administrative time. We provide inventory management software, and this helps VPs of ops to consistently hit their production targets. So the three differences there are, again, top one is technical benefit, business benefit, and the last one's a personal benefit. So hopefully all of that gives you some ideas of how to figure out what your value is and how to put it all together to create a value proposition. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is what can you do with that, right? And even you might even look at those statements that we came up with and said, well, that's not enough, or what am I going to do with that? Well, let's talk about when to use a value prop, because there's actually there's a lot of different moments where you can use what we just came up with. And so the first one is networking. So one of the most common things that someone will say to you when you're out networking, and this could either be you're at a business networking event, or you might be at a wedding or a birthday party or at the gym, right? And so someone's going to say, what do you do? And the normal response is, especially if you're a salesperson, I sell medical devices. I sell commercial insurance, right? And a lot of times, there's a few different things that might not be great with that, in my opinion. But one thing is that a lot of times the conversation just stops there. Okay, So that's actually a great moment to share your value proposition instead of saying what you sell. So the way that might look, what that might look like is, I work with small businesses and help them to reduce their inventory costs. And that's more interesting. It's less like autopilot-ish. What do you do? I sell this. Okay. Uh, it is so it's kind of a curveball. It invites more conversation. So then the other person might still not follow up with that, and that's probably more of a conversation flaw on their part if they do that. But a very possible response might be, "Oh, interesting. Well, how do you do that, or what do you mean by that?" And that's a really positive thing to happen, because then they're becoming curious and getting it. You're establishing a conversation here instead of, "I sell this. What do you do?" "I sell this." Okay. So, and then you could respond with your value proposition, or no, you've already said your value proposition. So now you can start to talk about your product or what you sell. We provide inventory management software, and that makes it easy to establish just-in-time inventory ordering. So you're getting into product and feature details, and so that's one way to use it. If that was a prospect, you're creating a more engaging conversation, and you're communicating in a more sophisticated way. You're not looking like a pushy salesperson that's going to try to sell something to them. You're appearing more sophisticated, more polished, more consultative, and you're establishing a more engaging conversation. You might end up in this exchange right here. You have shared more information with them than just saying, "I sell inventory management software." Another scenario where you can use your value proposition is cold calling, and use it to open your cold call. And what that might look like is so you call someone. "Hi, this is Martha. Hi, Martha. This is John from ABC Inc. Have I caught you in the middle of anything? I have a minute." "Okay, great. Well, the reason for my call is that I work with small businesses and help them to reduce inventory costs. I'm not sure if I can help you, if we can help you or not, you all or not, and that's why I wanted to ask you a question or two. Are you guys using anything for blah blah blah, or do you guys currently have a just-in-time?" You ask them one of your pre-qualifying questions, but that is a good way to open a cold call. Now, when you're cold calling, you also can face objections. So a common objection from a gatekeeper is when you call someone, they say, "Thank you for calling XYZ. How may I direct your call? Miss Wilson, please. May I ask what this is in regards to?" So this is one of the most common gatekeeper objections. And it doesn't sound like an objection, but it's an objection because when they say, "What is this in regards to?" If you answer that with an honest answer, which is, "I'm calling to see if you guys need it, such and such. I'm calling to set an appointment. I'm calling to introduce myself. I'm calling to see what you guys use for blah blah blah," right? That's the honest answer for what your call is in regards to. Then the gatekeeper has everything they need to know to get rid of you. And so as soon as you say anything like that, "We're not interested. We don't need any. Let me put you into a vendor mailbox." So you don't want to say any of those. Then you don't want to flat out lie. "What is this in regards to?" "Oh, we had lunch the other day, and I wanted to call to see what whatever." You don't want to flat out lie uh, to get past. So what we do is we recommend saying your value proposition at this moment, and it looks like something like this. "Well, the reason for my call is that I work with small businesses and help them to reduce their inventory costs." And now, this doesn't necessarily disguise you as that you're not a salesperson, but what it doesn't do, it doesn't give a gatekeeper the clear ding, 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 get rid of this person. It's almost like a curveball. They're looking for you to say, "Schedule an appointment, see if you guys need to purchase," whatever. They're looking for that clear thing that says salesperson trying to sell something. When you say this, they just don't really know. It throws them off. And I encourage you to try it, and I would love for you to tell us how it goes. But the other thing is that it's also, since you're saying your value, which is always something positive, meaning when it's always something positive, it's really difficult for the gatekeeper to say we don't need that or we're not interested in that. It's sort of like saying I create more peace in the world. It's hard for someone to say I don't want that, right? I mean, unless they're really like evil, horrible person. Let me think of another example. If you say I give people handouts of money, right? It's hard for someone to say I don't need that. I don't want that. I have too much of that, right? So it's very difficult for someone to say, oh, we're not interested in reducing inventory costs. Even if their inventory costs are already low, it's just hard for a gatekeeper to say, oh, we don't need that. So that's one good way to use it. And that same tactic, not only there's other objections that the gatekeeper or the individual prospect will give you that are similar. So it's, what is this in regards to? They also might say, is this a sales call? So those are basically the same thing, and you can respond in the same way. So if the gatekeeper says, is this a sales call? Well, the reason why I'm reaching out is I work with small businesses and help them to reduce their inventory costs. And you just sit there. So you're not really saying yes, you're not really saying no. So something to try. When you leave voicemail messages, you can use what we just came up with. So what that looks like is leave your name and number. Hi, John. This is Sarah from ABC Inc. Purpose of my call is that I work with small businesses and help them to reduce their inventory costs. I actually don't know if you are a fit for what we do. I was just calling you with a question or two. I'll try you next week, blah, blah, blah. So right there, a really good voicemail message, in my opinion. I mean, really good from a standpoint of, is that a voicemail message that John's going to call back? Probably not. If John is, especially, let me back up. I end up on the phone with customers all the time, or potential customers, and they come to me and they're like, people aren't returning my voicemails. If John is a decision maker and you leave the best voicemail, decision makers aren't going to return calls from salespeople. One, they're too busy, they get too many voicemails and whatnot. It doesn't mean for you not to leave a voicemail message and not to leave a good voicemail message, but don't leave voicemail messages in the expectation that they're going to call you back, and when they don't call you back, don't arrive at a place of disappointment. In fact, I honestly, in my experience, when prospects have returned my voicemails, it's almost a negative sign towards them. If someone is returning a voicemail from a cold call, it means that they're not a decision maker, because decision makers don't do that. So you could almost immediately disqualify them as not being the right person for you to talk to. Anyways, so the next one is you can use what we came up with for an email, and what that might look like is this. Hello, John. The reason why I'm reaching out is that I'm with ABC Inc. and we help small businesses to decrease time spent ordering, increase ordering accuracy, decrease time gathering information. I'm not sure if those are areas that you want to improve, and that's why I'm reaching out. Are you available for a brief call? So that is what I would call a pre-call email template, and really you're using your value proposition to create that template. So one thing I want to point out, we did 3 things there. We brainstormed our value points. We put our value points into value statements or value propositions, and then we use those statements and propositions in different sales scenarios that we just went through. I want to show you a little bit in Sales Scripter real quick how Sales Scripter can help you with those 3 things. So in Sales Scripter, there's a feature called the Sales Message Builder. And in the Sales Message Builder, there's an area called the Sales Pitch Builder. And in the Sales Pitch Builder, there is a step for coming up with benefits. Now, what Sales Scripter will do is Sales Scripter will provide you a place to put the value points that you think of. So it allows you to get those into the central place. By the way, we also have a tool here called Value Builder, which will ask you questions and take you through different questions that will help you. These are the questions that I showed you on those slides. So if you click through these questions and you think of one and you can enter, and basically the software helps you with your brainstorming. And it's kind of sophisticated too. It doesn't look sophisticated, but as you start to enter in answers in here, it starts to use your answers for future brainstorming questions. Meaning, if you put a benefit in here of you help someone to lose weight, then a future question through this little wizard will be, when you help someone to lose weight, does that lead to this benefit? So it helps you to sort of drill in and continue to expand from your brainstorming. And we're actually thinking about improving this wizard here to make it a little bit easier to use. But the point is that this is a place for you to do your brainstorming. Now, why would you want to do your brainstorming in here versus a blank document? Well, once you get your value points in here, there is an area here called the Sales Playbook. And if you didn't figure out when I said that you can use your value points in all these different scenarios, basically the software displays your value points at your value propositions at all the different moments where you might use it. So like here's a call script, and here's your value proposition at the beginning of the call script. So all of the different moments where it might come in handy to share those details, they are displayed. So there's a call script. I showed you email templates. So like here's a saw you on LinkedIn template that uses your value proposition. So here's a pre-call email. This is all using your value. I showed you a voicemail script. So here is the voicemail message using your value points and value proposition. I showed you objection handling. So here's an objections map, and you can, if you scroll through here, see these are using this shows you all the different moments where you can use your value proposition to respond to objection handling. So the key thing there is there's lots of different times to use your value proposition, and the software basically fills in your brainstorming into all those different places where you should be reminded to share that. So just want to show you that while we wrap all this up. And that is pretty much it for today. So what I'd like to do, or I'd like to make a deal with you. If this has helped you, if you've gotten at least one tip from this, one nugget that you can take with you and apply, I'd like to make a deal with you that if you'd like to return the favor of us providing this free training, the way you can return that favor back to us is to like this video. Will be on YouTube, or any of our other videos are already on YouTube, and you can like, comment, or share and subscribe to our channel, or like and comment, share on any of our videos, this video or any of our others, and that is a great way for you to return the favor to us. If you want more help from us, what we have to offer you is what we call the SMART sales system. And everything you're seeing here today is part of the SMART sales system. So SMART stands for sales messaging and response tactics. So sales messaging, our system will help you with building out what to say. And so most sales training programs out there, they tell you a lot of things to do or not, whatever, but they don't really tell you what to say. So we actually help you figuring out what to say in all the different situations that come up. So we're going to help you to build your messaging, your call scripts, your emails, your voicemails, your objection responses. And the response tactic and response means how we're going to help you with responding to objections, responding to questions. And tactics the T for tactics refers to we're going to give you the exact things to do and not do. So there's a lot of sales training programs out there that are all fluffy, right? They might sound good or be motivational, but once you get back to your desk, you don't really know how to implement it or what to do. We tell you exactly what to do, and that's really what we mean by we're going to give you all the tactics that you need to do. So that's what SMART stands for, and we call it a sales system because what we provide is actually a system that you can use and implement. I've read tons of sales books. I've been to tons of sales training workshops and programs, and some of them have good tips. Some of them are very complex and confusing. Some of them are very fluffy and more motivational. Most of them are stuff that is difficult to adopt and difficult to implement. And you could go through this most expensive and interesting workshop, but if you're not able to implement it and adopt it, then you might have wasted your time and money. With ours, we don't call this sales training, we call this a sales system because it is something that you can implement and actually incorporate into your sales efforts and process. The system is actually two parts. So part one of the system is a methodology. So a lot of what we've been talking about here today is a methodology on how to create your message, right? How to create your value proposition, when to use your value proposition. But we also have all these other modules in our methodology: cold calling, emailing, objections, setting appointments, gatekeepers, voicemails, all this different stuff. And that's our methodology. So that's all process and training. And you can consume and access and use our methodology through our books, through our videos, our live training, our coaching, and our consulting. And we work with basically individual salespeople that sell for themselves, and we also work with sales managers, helping them to train their salespeople. So we have two different types of customers. Now, we give away a lot of our methodology, and that's one half of the system, for free. There's some stuff you can buy, but most of it's free if you want it to be free. Because our real strategy is to sell our software platform, which is called SalesScripter. Now, the software completely aligns with the methodology. For example, the methodology teaches you about cold calling. The software provides you with cold call scripts. The methodology teaches you about cold emailing. The software provides you with cold email templates. And so on. And so the two go hand in hand. And now you could certainly, a lot of our customers only use one half of the methodology. So they might only use our training and they don't use our software. And then we have plenty of people that sign up with our software and don't really stop to go through and learn our methodology. Now, those are less than optimum, right? The real path to successfully adopting our approach is to use both halves of the system. Use the software and go through our training and our methodology. The pricing for the system, like I said, most of the training you can access on YouTube for free, but the software is $49 per month. You do get a 40% discount if you sign up for the year. The reason why there's such a big discount for the annual is that we have two types of customers. With our software, you're going to get a library of documents. Excuse me. You're going to get a bunch of documents. Now we have some customers that sign up and just use our system for 1 to 2 months just to get our documents, and then they cancel. And then we have other types of customers that use our system for ongoing, and there's plenty of reasons to use it ongoing. If you just want to minimize your cost, you can get in and get out, but there's reasons why you'd want to use it ongoing. And so if you use it ongoing, we want you to have a lower per month cost, and that's why we give you a 40% discount. It gets you down to $29 per month, but you do have to pay for the year. We do provide a service called a scripter walkthrough to get you to create your sales pitch. So like what we went through today with the brainstorming for the value, a lot of that is done in the scripter walkthrough, and it's a 2-hour process. Well, we go through and build your whole sales pitch, but a big portion of what we do is talk about your value, and it's $200, basically 2 hours, and we go through and get your pitch set up in SalesScripter. I actually do those, so It's really productive. I mean, not only are you going through the software with me so that you're having the software explained to you, but I'm also helping you to wordsmith your answers. So it's really productive. But once that's over, your sales pitch is in there, and that sales pitch then fills up the library of documents. So basically, if you one way to look at it is for $249, you end up with a full library of scripts and emails and documents, and you could keep using the software. You could cancel it. You could download all the documents and cancel. But basically, $250, you basically get a bunch of documents for your product, your industry, pretty much written by me. Whether or not you know enough about me to value that or appreciate it, you might, and if you do, then you might realize that that's probably a pretty good deal. The reason why that's such a good deal is that our hope is that we've designed the system so that you'd use it ongoing, right? So um, if you let me back that up. You don't have to use the system ongoing, but there's enough benefits that the system provides you that it should make sense for you to use it ongoing and have a positive return on investment. We're confident in that. So we give away the $200 pretty much of consulting. We pretty much give that at cost, in my opinion, because we know if we help you to get it set up successfully and get you using the system successfully, you're going to be with us for a long time and refer your friends and family. So that's more of our strategy. Anyways, here's my information. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.